and just what can you kind of recall from that recruitment?
We when we were fortunate enough to get this opportunity, one of the first things we did was take a look at guys from the state of Florida, that were producing and doing well, across the college landscape. And obviously he popped pretty quick, for what he was able to do at Moorhead. And, he went in the portal and, we were hoping that, I'm pretty sure he's from Plant City. We were excited at the opportunity to get him to be a Gator. And obviously because of his success there, was recruited by pretty much every, big time program around. And, we were fortunate enough to get in the mix and to get in the final two. I think we did a good job in a short period of time of kind of explaining our vision and kind of introducing him to our staff and kind of what we had going on. But obviously Bruce had been at Auburn and had been solidified for a while. And, they do a great job as well. And, he decided to go be a Tiger. And obviously he's had a great career and been really impactful in terms of their success. And, knock on wood for us, we've been able to do pretty well also. But we'd have been happy to have him, and I'm happy for him in Auburn and the success that he's had.
Coach, we'll go to the front of the room, left of the aisle.
Good morning, Coach. Greg Eklund, and this is for NPR. You are part of a team. Well, let me put it this way. This year in the Sweet 16, there was only one double-digit seed, and that school was from the SEC. And I pose this question to you because you played at St. Mary's and you coached at San Francisco. Do you see a growing disparity between the power schools and the Big East Conference and the non, and is that a detriment for the tournament?
I definitely see a growing disparity between the levels. I don't think that's hard to see when you kind of look at the numbers and you see how the different teams, have done over the course of the year. And really, I think it's kind of been trending this way for the last couple of years. But this might be the best example of that, with the way the tournament's shaken out. And do I think it's, just bad for the tournament? Or I don't know. I think there's still been some great moments and some really, really good games. And, for me, I think the goal or something that should be celebrated as well is that I truly believe the four best teams in college basketball are here this weekend. And, I think that's something that you go back however many years hasn't been the case. And so, even though there maybe weren't as many exciting upsets or, storylines that way, I think the fact that all four of the best teams in college basketball all year long making it this far is a great storyline as well.
Coach, right in the center of the room, toward the right.
Hi, Amanda Kristovich, Front Office Sports. There's been a lot of conversation about the analytical approach that your team has taken, but I was wondering if you could give a little bit more detail about how the analytics and advanced metrics that you're using set you apart and what you're doing that you feel like is unique compared with other programs.
The way I try to describe it is I think from a macro perspective, like we try to view everything we do through an analytical lens, so what I mean by that is, just gathering as much data as we possibly can on whatever decision it is that we're trying to make, and then letting those, that data kind of point us in the right direction. So, I would say there's specific instances in different parts of our program that I could point to, whether it's recruiting, whether it's, in-game management, whether it's scheduling. That would probably take me a lot longer to explain. But big picture-wise, again, just kind of like trying to view everything through an analytical lens. There's obviously times where we use a human element as well, to decision make. But, we know we're not perfect and we know we're human. And so we want to give ourselves as much data and information as we can before we make decisions. So, specific, the instance against Texas Tech, the fouling at the end of the game, I think that's something that's a little unique and that a lot of teams wouldn't do or wouldn't think to do. So that's just one example, but it's really more of a macro perspective.
Very center of the room. We're going to use the front left microphone, Aaron.
Coach, Daryl Dapprich with Auburn Daily. Just to kind of follow up a little bit on this mid-major Power 5, wanted to get your opinion because I've heard a lot about people attributing no Cinderellas basically in the Elite Eight or the upsets due to the transfer portal and NIL. If you had to choose one that you think was more attributive to that, which would you pick?
It's just 100% transfer portal and the transfer rules. If you just took NIL out of the equation, I really believe we would still be having these conversations because, these young men and women have the ability to really just take a look at their situation after every season, as opposed to in the past where it was a one-time transfer exception and then you kind of had to make that one decision and live with it. So when these men and women are able to move every offseason, coaches have more opportunities to get it right, so to speak, in terms of who they recruit and who they add to their program. And, the young men and women, I would say for a majority of them, they want to play at the highest level. They want to prove that they're the best, that they compete at the highest level. So I think that the transfer legislation and people being able to move after every year is definitely the driving force in that.
Up front on the left side.
Hey, Todd. Lindsay Schnell from The Athletic. Multiple players have told me that Elijah is far and away the best trash talker on the team. I wondered if you agreed with that, and what is the craziest thing you have ever heard him say during a game or practice that we can print?
Yeah, well, then we're gonna have to talk about that. No, I'd say he's an incredible competitor, and just the way. And we've talked about it a lot. Like, I think his addition to our program this past offseason has lifted us, another level, and not just for the program, but for individual players, like in the way they compete. He does a great job of kind of creating that expectation within our program on a day-to-day basis. And I don't know if there's anything specific that I'm going to point to, but it's just more, again, the mentality and just the approach and understanding that every time he steps on the floor, he's going to compete at a really, really high level. And the guys call him Crash Out for a reason. He really gets after it and, has a great sense of competition and mentality. And, I think it has definitely kind of bled to the rest of the crew.
Next question, third row, center. Front left, microphone here.
Hey, Coach. Evan Miyakawa from evanmiya.com. I know a lot of your guys on the roster this year are transfers, but you got a lot of the key guys from last year's team to return this year, like Clayton, Richard, Condon, Haug. Can you speak to Can you speak to the importance of the roster continuity that you had from last year and just your approach to building this team and why that's been successful this year?
Yeah, I think continuity is incredibly important, and we were finally in a position after our second year where we had a lot of really talented players in our program that we felt like we could build around them. That was not the case after year one. Year one, it was more about just trying to get an influx of talent into the program so we can compete in the best conference in America, which we were able to do. And then because we were able to bring in really talented young guys, specifically Alex and Tommy and Denzel, as guys that have grown within our program, and then specifically Walt and Will in the portal the year before, we felt like those five were great to build around. And the way that we hope to do it, obviously last year we were able to, hopefully moving forward, is retaining the key players in our program. We have about, even more than last year that we're going to do everything we can to retain and then kind of fill in the gaps around that. But, I know you understand it. You've seen it, I think, between us, Auburn, and Houston. Each program has about 70% of their roster, or at least their playing roster from last year returning. Duke's around 30, but Duke also has three incredibly talented freshmen that are hard to get. So the continuity piece, I think, is definitely important, and something that, at Florida, and I've said this before, it's such a great place that I feel like we can still execute a real program. And my hope is that we'll be able to do it with the same guys next year as well.
Left side of the room, up front to the right of the aisle. 2 questions. You're first.
Yeah, Edgar Thompson, Orlando Sentinel. Todd, so you kind of touched on the transfer portal benefit, but when you look at Janai and Walter growing up 30 minutes from each other, what does that kind of say maybe about the inexact science of recruiting, and also guys like that, getting the proverbial chip on their shoulder to kind of prove themselves?
Yeah, it's with the transfer legislation the way it is, like those guys. I mean, I would say even for Walter and Janai, like they as 18-year-olds, would not be able to help an SEC program compete the same way anywhere close to what they do now. Walter had a very good freshman year at Iona, and then became MAC Player of the Year as a sophomore, and jumped up and became a very good SEC player. But it might have taken him a little longer if he came to us right away. Same for Janai. He had 2 really good years at Morehead. So you look at a lot of the teams that have had success. They're older. They have senior laden rosters, guys that are 23, 24, even 25. Now the way that college is shaking out. So it isn't an exact science for sure. It's really, really hard. But a lot of times, sometimes it just takes getting a little older, for those guys to really be able to impact at a high level.
One row back.
Yeah, Mike Bianchi, Orlando Sentinel coach. When you were being recruited to Florida by Scott Strickland, was this a job that you targeted? What was attractive to it for you? And can you talk about Scott, sort of how he supported you through the thick and the thin?
Yeah, well, when we had a pretty good run that last year at San Francisco, we started getting some calls and some different opportunities. But as soon as my agent let me know that Florida had reached out, right from that moment, that was the job that I wanted. And fortunately, Scott and I connected and had a really great, easy conversation that felt natural, and I didn't feel like either of us were having to kind of get out of our comfort zone to have good conversations. And then I was fortunate enough to Zoom with them the next morning, where I was able to talk to Scott, and then Duke Werner, Linda Teeler, and Chip Howard, the senior administrative team. And again, we spoke for about an hour and a half, and it felt like it took 5 minutes. We're on the same page in regards to, what we thought the vision at Florida should be, and kind of the attitude in which we should have, in terms of attacking the opportunity, and just kind of being grateful for it, and understanding that Florida is a great place, and kind of recruiting to the strengths of the school in terms of an academic school, the tradition and history that had come before us. And, I was in college when Torian and his teams went back-to-back national championships, so I always had a very, very positive feeling and outlook in regards to Florida. And so, after that conversation, transparently, we had some other opportunities that we were close to, and I started kind of putting pressure on Scott and calling Scott and saying, I would love to be your coach. And I don't want to miss out on some other opportunities that I have. And so if you feel the same way, let's do this thing. And, 24 hours later, I was fortunate enough to give the opportunity. And I'm super grateful for Scott, for Duke Werner, for Linda Teeler and her time at Florida, and now Amy Haas. They've been incredible, and I appreciate their support. I feel like they knew who I am, and they know the type of person I am, and the type of program I run. And I feel like we are all very grateful for each other, and the fact that we're here at the Final Four right now.
Up front on the right side.
Hey, Coach. Tyler Glasscock with Perfect. You guys were an early exit in last year's tournament, and then just over a year later, you guys are in the Final Four on the biggest stage. What does that mean to you and your guys just to reach this level of competing for a national championship after the way last year ended?
Just good proof of concept and growth for our program. We had a disappointing end to last season, but it was a really good year. We made it to the SEC tournament championship game, lost to a great Auburn team, get back to the NCAA tournament, lose arguably the most exciting game in the first round of the NCAA tournament, 102-100 without Micah, after we lost him to a really tough injury. And so we had a sour taste in our mouth at the end of the year, but we weren't disappointed about where our program was. And, so talking about, answering Evan's question about making sure we kept those guys that we knew embodied what we wanted our program to be about, and then making sure we added the right pieces, which we certainly did. Did we necessarily expect Final Four this year? I think that's probably like a hard expectation on a year-to-year basis. But we definitely believed in what we were doing and who we had in our program, both from a player and staff perspective, that this group had a chance to do something special. And so, we have another opportunity tomorrow, to see if we can get one step further. But I think it's just a great example of what we believe in working, and just seeing how far we can take it this year.
We're going to take a question up front on the right, but we want to welcome Will Richard as well. Will will walk up during the question and then grab a seat.
Hey, Will. Got a name tag?
Actually,
You gotta go get your name tag.
Will's got to bring his own nameplate at the Final Four. He's ready to do it, though. And your question.
Hi, Todd. Aaron Bracey from Hoops HQ. Elijah, having played in the Final Four already, has that been something you've leaned on? And what might that experience do for both him individually and also for you, your team?
It was something that we've leaned into since he got to campus. That was a really big part of why we targeted Elijah and why we wanted him to come into our program. We with Walter and Will returning last year, like we knew we needed one more really good perimeter player, but we had to make sure it was someone that fit well with them, both from an on-court standpoint, but also personality standpoint. Like these guys are around each other all the time, and the thing that I always really enjoyed about Elijah was just obviously his experience, the fact that he played in the Final Four, had really good success. Felt like he always had a chip on his shoulder and wanted to lead and kind of be a part of something that was bigger than himself. And early on in the summer, like he talked a lot about playing in the Final Four and just that experience. But with Will and Walt, like I felt internally we had some great leadership as well, and the combination that those guys, the leadership that those three are able to exude amongst themselves has carried us, all year. And so, like now that we're here, I would say, it's amazing the experience, but it's not that important. Like we're all kind of taking this in our own way and attacking our own way. But I do think his experience really helped us get to this point.
We'd like to welcome Will Richard at this time to the main interview room, first appearance of the week. We're going to take questions for Will or for Coach Golden from students from our Full Court Press program. If any of those students have a black lanyard and have a question, please raise your hand. We'll send a microphone stored in your direction. We're looking for the first question, and here is one. Your name and media outlet, then your question.
Hi, my name is Terrell Thompson for Full Court Press. Coach Golden, how has this team been able to find so much success late in games this season?
Leadership, experience. And, I talk about Will, Walt, and Elijah a ton, but they're a huge reason why. We've been in some tight games late over the course of our full season. Not that many, to be honest, but, probably 5 or 6. And the thing that gives me great confidence as a head coach is, we go in these huddles, whether it's under 8 or under 4, and I'm looking at these guys, especially, I go back to the Carolina game, the first time we were down 4, and I'm looking at, really looking at Will's eyes, and he feels super comfortable. Like there's not, any sort of, lack of confidence, being exuded by these guys in those moments. And, obviously we come back, we win that game, and we've done it a number of times now. And these guys just expect to win. They've had a lot of individual success. They've had a lot of team success now at this point in their career. They're veterans in the college game, and, they've earned the confidence in which they show by the work they put in. And so, I lean on our senior year leaders, in those moments to take us home.
We're continuing with questions for the Full Court Press program journalists. And just a reminder, the Florida locker room is still open for another 13 or so minutes for student-athlete availability for everyone. If you have a question and you're with the Full Court Press program, raise your hand. There's one in the center of the room.
Hi, Coach Golden. Evan Vieth, Full Court Press. 4 years ago, you were hunched over a laptop doing a presentation called Analytics in Basketball and Winning in the Margins while you were at San Francisco. How have you used that idea and that identity of analytics-backed basketball to revolutionize this Florida program, and why was that such an important part of your basketball journey from the very start?
We our program, the way we operate our program at Florida is truly like identical in many ways to what we've done at San Francisco. Even what we did at Columbia with Kyle Smith, and we talk about like we think smart wins, and we try to run and operate our program like it's a business. Like we hire staffing to do different roles, we recruit players to assume different roles. And in a game that is changing dramatically by the year, I think it's as important now than ever to be on the cutting edge of just kind of having an analytical mindset in the way you approach what you do on a day-to-day basis. And so I think it's helped us a ton. Obviously, we've had a lot of great success, and we try to use that analytical mindset to put these guys in good positions to be successful, to teach the way we want to play the game. Without nerding out too much and annoying these guys with different comments, even though it happens sometimes. I know that's the case, but I just think again, overarching theme, like we're just trying to be as efficient as we can in everything we do.
If you're in our Full Court Press program, raise your hand. Questions for Will Richard or for Coach Golden? Back side of the room on the right.
Hi, Coach Golden. Brian Hopper, Full Court Press. I was just wondering, does that analytical approach inform what y'all as a program do in the transfer portal? Because it's hard to evaluate guys, apples and oranges, if they performed at a mid-major, can they perform in the SEC, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we definitely approach transfer portal guys analytically, to start. The first thing we want to do is make sure they're good enough, to help us on the floor. And, once we're able to identify that, and there's more than just numbers on that. We're filtering guys, I would say, by numbers, and then we're watching them and seeing what we think. But then after we kind of clear that hurdle, then it goes to really just kind of learning who they are as a person, and how they operate and what they're about, what their family's like. And, if we feel like they'd be good fits as Gators, and this guy sitting next to me was the first one, man. The first one that, we saw him hit the portal, and we look at his numbers at Belmont, and, incredibly efficient as a freshman, high usage player, great rebounding rates, great steal rates, great block rates. And then we go meet with him in Nashville, and the kid is just an incredible light bulb and an incredible human being. And we get him down to campus, and then we meet his father, Al, and his mother, Helen, and we're like, dude, if we can get 13 Will Richards on this roster, like we're going to be making the Final Four. And we don't have 13 Wills, but we have 13 great guys. And they are the driving reason as to why we're here right now.
And speaking of Will, any questions for Will from the Full Court Press journalists? No questions for Will? We have one up front. We're going to use the front left microphone. Come on up.
Hi, Will. Arden Flight's Full Court Press. I want to know, knocking off Auburn's win streak at their own home, now essentially you are preparing for their revenge game against you guys. What is your mindset for this game going in?
Definitely just win the game. We know they're a great program. We have to come in and play a complete game for 40 minutes and do what we do, make the effort plays, be nails on defense and locked in on offense, and just executing at a high level.
Florida locker room is still open. We're looking for Full Court Press questions at this time. That means you have a day pass. All right, in the back on the right.
Hey, Will, Travis Bradley here, Arizona State Cronkite News. I'm curious, obviously Coach Golden talks so highly of you, and they went and they took an opportunity to bring you onto the team a couple years ago. I'm wondering, what does that feel like for you, and how do you manage that responsibility to your coaches in the program, knowing that they took a shot on me? How can I pay that back?
It feels great. I mean, since I entered the portal, Florida stood out the most. Coach Golden stood out the most to me, and just playing for Florida, I mean, it means a lot. Just being on the team, wearing that Gator logo, it means everything. So just repaying them back by winning. I mean, you want to win at a high level and get Florida back to that national relevance. And we've done a great job of doing that, but we know it's more left to do.
Members of our Full Court Press program can raise their hand with questions for Coach Golden or for Will. There's another one in the back toward the right side.
I guess for either one of y'all, you've mentioned getting Florida and this program back to the pinnacle of the sport. It's been about 15, 20 years. Has anybody from those back-to-back title teams, Coach Donovan, Joakim Noah, anybody from those teams reached out and tried to be a guiding force this year for y'all?
Let's start with our senior, Will.
Yeah, I mean, Torian Green, with him being a part of the program, he's been a lot. I feel like last year when we did the TBT, talking to Corey Brewer, talking to Coach Donovan, guys like that, it definitely means a lot to talk to him and know what it takes to get there back to the point that what they were, and just knowing what it took to get there. So we definitely talked to a lot of different people.
Yeah, the same. We've gotten some really great messages. Coach Donovan, Al Horford's been really supportive, during our run. A lot of those guys that were on the back-to-back teams, and then even guys that played over the last 10 years, like Chandler Parsons is a guy that's reached out quite a bit over the past couple weeks, just so excited for the success, we're having. And, for us, we're just really prideful and proud of the fact that, Florida basketball obviously has some very high-level kind of gatekeepers, people that have been a part of this program when it's at its best. And now that we're back in the Final Four, like we feel like we can kind of become a part of that family.
On the left side of the room, we're going to use the front left microphone.
This goes for both of you guys. I just want to hear a coach's and player's perspective. This team has been a part of 4 double-digit comebacks this season, and you're coming off one against Texas Tech in one of the biggest games of your year. Will, what's the perspective on the floor when you're down 10? And, Coach, what are you telling them in the huddle?
Let's start with Will.
I feel like with our team, if there's time left on the clock, we can have a chance to give ourselves a chance to win. Just with how resilient we are, how we can fight through adversity. So I feel like as long as there's time on the clock, we can give ourselves a chance to win. And I feel like that's what makes this team special, just how hard we're going to fight to the end, knowing that we don't want to lose a game.
Coach.
Yeah, using the Texas Tech game as an example, I'm going to talk about the way that Will and his teammates have unwavering confidence. I'm not as confident in those moments. I'm talking to him at the under 4, like, hey man, we got to play pretty dang perfect down the stretch here. If we want to find a way to win this game. And I know he remembers. We're talking about we had just missed a block out against Texas Tech. They get a rebound. They're going to the foul line, and just we talked again about like we have to do everything we can down the stretch here to not. Allow ourselves off the hook in any way. And fortunately, these guys were able to do that against Texas Tech. Now, hopefully on Saturday, we don't have to have those types of conversations down the stretch. Hopefully it's more about, hey, got to finish this game the right way. Let's play to win and not to not lose, et cetera. But, we'll see how it goes tomorrow and go from there.
Let's follow up with the microphone. We'll bring the microphone back to you.
No, that's fine. That's all I want to say.
You're making a closing comment.
I just wanted to say that you guys seem very comfortable in those situations. That's been a part of your career ever since you got to Florida, and it's impressive to watch this group stay so poised when they're down by double digits.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further full court press questions? We have one on the aisle. We have two on the aisle.
Brian McQuillan, Full Court Press. Will, can you just talk a little bit about Walter Clayton? His ability to hit tough shots, kind of, help the team bounce back down late against Texas Tech, and just your confidence in him, on the court with him?
I mean, yeah, it's special. I mean, just seeing how poised he is in those moments, how comfortable he is taking big shots. I mean, it just goes back to who he is. And I feel like we've seen it since he got in here, just his work ethic, how much he puts into the game. It's just good to see him going out there and showing everybody else what we already know.
Same area.
This is Terrell Townsend from Full Court Press. Will, how does it feel to be recognized as having one of the best backcourts in the nation?
It feels good. Of course, I mean, you put the work in to get that type of recognition, but we also know we have an elite front court, too, and they do a great job of helping us win games, and I feel like they're just as elite as our backcourt. I feel like we're elite as a group.
Any further full court press questions? There's another one toward the back.
Coach Golden, obviously you and Bruce Pearl go way back, whether it's the Jewish Olympics. What does it mean to you now to be mano-a-mano against him?
It's special, someone that you care a lot about and that has been so impactful to my life, both basketball-wise and off the court, and someone that I worked with over 10 years ago. To now, kind of full circle opportunity to be a head coach at an incredible place like Florida, and now competing against your mentor and one of your best friends, for a trip to go to the national championship game. I mean, it's pretty special, man, and just grateful for the opportunity.
We have two more up front.
Hi, Ariel Doss, Full Court Press. Y'all both have talked about the work ethic and the character that you look for in players and that you've seen in your teammates. What do you think it means to wear the Gator logo, and what stands out about your players in this competition?
I just feel like putting the program bigger over yourself. Just get up yourself for the greater good of the program. Just going out there and fighting for 40 minutes every time you step on the court, and just playing for each other, having fun doing it, and just trying to win games.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us, both as our players and our staff, is I think to a man in our program, like everybody's grateful to be at Florida. I think that's the best way to say it. Like nobody feels like they've settled. Nobody feels like there might have been better opportunities elsewhere for us. Like from my opportunity 3 years ago to become the head coach here, to Will's opportunity to evaluate a bunch of other places. He was really excited to go to Florida. I feel like we have a roster full of guys that have that same mentality, coaching staff that has that same mentality. And when you have people that are all, pulling the same direction and feel the same way, you can do some special things. And I tell these guys all the time, like our individual talent on our roster is really good. All of our players are really good. But the thing that separates us, in my humble opinion, is what we call our team talent, and the way our guys play together and the way they lift each other up and make each other better. These guys don't care who gets the individual credit on a certain night, because they understand if we win that they're all going to get the credit they deserve. And that's definitely carried us to have the year that we've had, in my opinion.
Final question, second row.
Hi, Patrick Walsh, Full Court Press. I know Will touched on it a little bit in regards to beating a team twice, and it's so hard in sports to beat a good team twice. But, Coach Golden, I just wanted to ask you, what do you look to see your team execute in order to win tomorrow?
Obviously we played a good game against them the first time. It's hard to beat a really good team twice for sure. The good thing is we only have to beat them one more time. We already beat them once, so got to clip them tomorrow night. But for us, we're at the level where I really believe we have to do a great job scouting Auburn, but our teams know each other really well at this point. We're going to show these guys what we call our keys and personnel probably 3 more times before the ball goes in the air, and I would probably venture to guess that Will could tell you player by player right now the tendencies that each of these Auburn players have and what they like to run, whether it's in the half court or out of bounds or on the sideline. So, that's more of just like us as coaches, like kind of covering our butts and making sure we can say, hey, you were prepared, to do these things. But we got to play hard. We got to defend well. We got to be physical. We have to rebound well. We got to be strong with the ball and take care of it. And just do the things that we've done all year to make us really, really consistent. And the great thing is we have shot makers on our team. And at the end of the day, you got to make shots to win the game.
We want to thank Coach Golden. We want to thank Will Richard for joining us here in the main interview room. They're going to head back to the locker room, which is closed. And then they're going to go out to the court for their open practice. Thanks, Coach.